parallel time and space, Blue Star, the 17th year of the new Republic of China. This is an era of rapid change. On the one hand, new science and technology are developing at a spurt of speed, but on the other hand, there are too many backward and decadent people at the bottom of society. The whole world is in a state of fragmentation and violence. Advanced and backward coexist. Some people are driving fast sports cars, while others are still pulling rickshaws. Modern metropolises have emerged, but ancient, backward towns are still like stars. A variety of energy sources coexist, including coal, oil, and wind power, but electricity has become another new energy source. Zhonghai, the most powerful place in the new Republic of China, is devouring people. Lu Li seemed a little irritable today. He did not run like a wild dog to the nearby tram stop as usual, took the last tram, and then returned to his rental house in the suburbs. He was expressionless, or rather numb, walking on the roadside. His mind was full of complicated thoughts. It has been 4 years since I graduated and started working at the age of 23. During the past 4 years, Lu Li watched as one colleague after another joined the company with great ambitions, and then one after another left the job in disgrace and returned to his hometown. This city is devouring people. Lu Li also began to think about whether he also wanted to leave this place where his dreams rose and fell. Just today, Lu Li's parents in his hometown called Lu Li. Mom Yuqin first urged Lu Li to find a girlfriend as soon as possible. Then, she told Lu Li not to worry about the house. She and Lu's father sold an old house in their hometown, and then added their life savings to give Lu Li a total of 700,000 yuan. In addition, the savings of more than 300,000 yuan that Lu Li had saved over the years amounted to about 1 million. This figure can be used to pay a down payment in China overseas. Of course, the location of this down payment house must be in a very remote suburb of Zhonghai. Now in China overseas, in core areas such as major districts in Xiqing, housing prices are around 130,000 per square meter. Outside the core area, housing prices in Dongqing district are also over 70,000 square meters. Only by going far outside can you barely find a house with an average price of 20,000 to 30,000 yuan. To buy a smaller apartment, a down payment of around 1 million is enough. Thinking of this, Lu Li's eyes flickered, and he clenched his fists unconsciously. His parents are an ordinary two-income family in their hometown. They can scrape together 700,000 yuan, which should be emptied out of the family, not just savings but even pension funds. Am I willing to live such a life? Squeeze your family dry to become a resident of this changing metropolis? Based on this future era, Lu Li asked himself this. This method is indeed the way for the vast majority of the foreign population to stay in Zhonghai. The 2 generations before and after sacrificed everything in exchange for a place to stay in Zhonghai. My current salary is 16,000 yuan after tax, plus the mortgage payment. Lu Li did a simple calculation in his mind and got a result that made him feel desperate. This society is very cruel. You will never get corresponding rewards if you work hard. I don't want to live like this. Lu Li spat hard and said firmly, "Boom! Boom!" Suddenly, a bolt of lightning pierced the sky, followed by bursts of thunder. In an instant, the rain was pouring down. In this night, heavy raindrops fell cracklingly. Lu Li took shelter at the door of a nearby store. Watching the raindrops and the hurried crowd, the rain continues to fall. At this moment, something unexpected happened to Lu Li without any warning, without attracting anyone's attention. A round quartz clock vaguely appeared in each of Lu Li's eyes. The clock keeps turning at different speeds. Da, da, da. Unpredictable messages began to appear in Lu Li's mind. I do not know how long it has been. Lu Li received all the information and then came to his senses. In his eyes, the virtual quartz clock also disappeared. Lu Li was a little shocked. He raised his head and looked to the side. A middle-aged man holding a briefcase who was taking shelter from the rain with him. Lu Li saw a few simple messages above the middle-aged man's head. Name, Cheng Xiaoxian. Age, 42 years old. Remaining lifespan, 31 years, 78 days, 12 hours, 56 minutes and 32 seconds. Lu Li swallowed, then turned his head and looked at another girl who was about the same age as him. Name: Gu Ping. Age: 26 years old. Remaining life: 9 years, 15 days, 3 hours, 47 minutes and 29 seconds. Does this mean that the pretty girl in front of me can only live to be 35? Lu Li was in a daze. He continued to look at another middle-aged man with a stout figure and a simple face who was some distance away from him. Name: Fan Changjiang. Age: 36 years old. Remaining life: 3 minutes and 23 seconds. Lu Li's eyes suddenly widened. This middle-aged man's lifespan only has the last 3 minutes and 23 seconds left? No. 3 minutes and 22 seconds. 3 minutes and 21 seconds. 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Lu Li's heart was pounding, and his breathing became faster and faster. His Adam's apple was surging, and he swallowed deeply. He opened his eyes wide and stared closely at the middle-aged man named Fan Changjiang, watching the number representing remaining life above his head counting down second by second. Cold, cruel, ruthless. Lu Li's body felt numb, and he had some doubts about the superpower he had obtained, because the middle-aged man in the distance had a rosy complexion. Apart from being a little irritable and constantly looking at his watch, he seemed to be very healthy. At least he didn't look like someone who would die on the spot in more than 2 minutes. As time passed by, Lu Li watched Fan Changjiang closely. The heavy rain was still falling, and the raindrops continued to fall from the black night. The rain crackling on the ground was like the sound of firecrackers. Just when the time above the head of the middle-aged man named Fan Changjiang was about to reach 0, he changed. All I could see was that he glanced at his watch, then at the rain, then gritted his teeth, picked up his briefcase and rushed into the rain. His target was obviously the bus stop on the other side of the road, next to the roadside. The asphalt road was washed away by the rain and looked very clean. Fan Changjiang was soaked all over. He jogged to the roadside and stepped directly onto the road without hesitation. Lu Li's eyes widened. In his eyes, the time above Fan Changjiang's head that represented his lifespan had only 4 seconds left. 3 seconds. The pace of time seemed to slow down at this moment. Beep! Around the corner, a red sports car suddenly appeared like lightning, and 2 huge light beams penetrated the rain curtain. The piercing whistle sounded suddenly. All around, all the people taking shelter from the rain looked towards the roadside. All I saw was that Fan Changjiang was also looking in the direction of the oncoming car. However, the red sports car was going very fast and there was no time to react. Only a loud bang was heard. Then there was a harsh crunch. The body of the middle-aged man in the distance flew high. The briefcase fell from his hand, and his body fell heavily. The bright red blood flowed from Fan Changjiang's body and dyed the ground red. The red sports car left a braking mark on the ground and finally stopped. 2 seconds. 1 second. 0. Blood red. In Lu Li's eyes, the word remaining lifespan on the head of the middle-aged man named Fan Changjiang finally returned to 0 and turned blood red. Under the red sports car, someone got out of the car. There were also enthusiastic people running around. Some people took out their mobile phones and dialed 120. But only Lu Li knew that all this was useless. The middle-aged man died on the spot the moment his body fell. Lu Li witnessed Fan Changjiang's complete death process. He raised his head and looked at the enthusiastic people gathered at the scene of the car accident. Looking at the countdown on each of their heads, his mouth was dry and his body felt a little cold. Lu Li stood there, looking uncertain. He looked at the approaching police cars and ambulance not far away. Look at the way the doctor in the ambulance spreads his hands. Lu Li glanced at the heavy rain that was still falling, and then plunged into the rain. I hailed a taxi directly, spent more than 100 yuan, and returned to the shared house. He went straight into the room and sat at the desk. Thinking back to the scene just now, Lu Li's body started to tremble uncontrollably. But gradually he calmed down, More and more excitement and ambition gradually crept into the depths of his black and white pupils, which had previously seemed lifeless. The corners of the mouth are raised. Open your mouth. Lu Li clenched his fists again, and veins exploded. His breathing became faster and faster. This is an opportunity to change your destiny and break the prison, Lu Li muttered to himself. Lu Li began to explore his new superpower. Acquisition time, selling time. Time accelerates. Time slows down. The above 4 items are his 4 abilities that Lu Li extracted and summarized from the mysterious information in his mind. The first item, acquisition time. It means that Lu Li can buy time from others like a businessman. The second item, selling time. It means that Lu Li can sell the time he owns to others like a businessman. The third item, time acceleration, meaning superimposing the time you have can produce an acceleration effect. For example, if 2 times are superimposed, the environment where Lu Li is located will be separated from the time environment of the outside world. 2 minutes have passed for Lu Li and 1 minute has passed for the outside world. The fourth item, time deceleration, meaning you can slow down your own time by 1 time, 2 times, or more. For example, 1 minute passed by Lu Li and 2 minutes passed by the outside world. And this time refers to the time that a person can exist in this world, or it can also be said to be yangshuo. The night is getting deeper and deeper, and the rain is getting heavier and heavier. Outside the window, the pitter-patter sound of rain hitting the ground could still be heard. In the room, Lu Li sat at his desk and continued to study his special abilities. He took out a notebook and sorted out the information in his mind about acquisition time and selling time. This seems to be derived from the rules of heaven and earth, a transaction conducted under the witness of the contract. In this act, I play the role of a businessman. On the white writing paper, Lu Li held a pen and wrote something like this. From the information Lu Li received, he learned that whether he was purchasing time or selling time, he needed to draw up a voucher in advance, which in modern terms is a contract. The name of this contract is time contract. The time contract was drawn up by Lu Li. Once both parties signed the contract, the contents of the contract would be witnessed by heaven and earth, and no one could violate it, not even him, the leader. Lu Li turned a new page. In the middle of the top corner of this page, write, Time Acquisition Contract Sample. He paused, showing his thoughts, and then began to write one by one. Contract No. Party A's sales time person. Party B's acquirer. Specific project. After consensus reached by both parties, the following is reached. Article 1. This transaction shall not be disclosed to anyone. Article 2. Party B's data and information shall not be investigated in any way. Article 3. Any behavior that is detrimental to the interests of Party B shall not be done. Article 4. You must not lie about your annual income level. Article 5. After signing the contract, both parties are deemed to have reached an agreement, and the transaction shall not be stopped. Article 6. If there is a violation, the remaining time of the violator will be reduced as appropriate according to the severity of the violation, and the remaining time of serious violators will be reset to 0. Article 7. Payment method. After Party A and Party B sign, they can choose the following method to conduct the transaction. Lu Li stopped writing. He looked at the extremely crude acquisition time contract on his notebook. According to the information in his mind, although he, the leader, cannot break the contract, he has the authority to draw up the contract. Therefore, during the process of drafting the contract, Lu Li naturally focused on safeguarding his own interests and made this contract an overlord contract. Lu Li is not worried that this contract will affect his future business. After all, he controls the most important time. Lu Li turned over a new page. In the middle of the first line, it says, Time Selling Contract Sample. Then, the following content is basically the same as the acquisition contract template. After roughly finalizing the first version of the contract, Lu Li turned on the computer and printed out a pile of the 2 contracts. Collect the 2 contracts in 2 folders and put them in the drawer. Lu Li opened a new page in his notebook. After thinking about it, he wrote down what he was thinking about next at the beginning of the first line of his notebook, about the measurement of time value in defining acquisitions. Although some people say that time is the fairest and is equal to everyone, however, the value created by each person at the same time is different. For some people, every day and every year is very meaningful. But for some people, every day and every year is boring and boring. So, in terms of acquisition or sale, can the same price be used? Lu Li didn't want to disrupt social order, so he couldn't set it too high or too low. He stopped writing and thought deeply. After a long time, Lu Li then continued to write. Pricing related to acquisition time. Taking ordinary people as examples, scientists, educators, soldiers, doctors with extremely high medical ethics and other professions are not included. Those with an annual income of less than 100,000 yuan will be purchased at a price of 300,000 yuan per year, and negotiation will be refused. Those with an annual income of more than 100,000 renminbi will be purchased at 3 times the annual income and will be refused to negotiate. Supplement. If the seller has other behaviors that increase the time value, the purchase price can be increased. Lu Li turned to a new page, picked up the pen and wrote on the first line, about the sale of measurement and definition of the value of time. Time selling needs to be strictly controlled. The time purchased by a single person must also be controlled. He thought and then wrote, taking wealthy businessmen as an example, scientists, educators, soldiers, doctors with extremely high medical ethics and other professions are not included. For those with assets of more than 10 million, 1/5 of the value created in a single year will be used as a supplement to the price in a single year. 1. Conditions for the first purchase. 2. The second purchase price can only increase, not decrease. When writing this, Lu Li's writing suddenly stopped. A new idea appeared in his mind. This is the prototype of a huge organizational framework. The Immortality Club. Lu Li turned to a new page in his notebook and wrote in the middle of the first line of this page. The club is all-encompassing, including in gathering the most elite ordinary people, talents, and wealthy businessmen from all walks of life on Earth. Club members should be divided into 9 levels. Measure it only by the consumption of money. The level of LV1 members is tens of millions. The level of LV2 members is hundreds of millions. The level of LV3 members is billions. The level LV4 members are tens of billions. The level LV5 members are hundreds of billions. The level LV6 members are trillion level. Level 1 members can redeem up to 1 year of life. Level 2 members can redeem for 3 years. Level 3 members can redeem for 5 years. Level 4 members can redeem for 10 years. Level 5 members can redeem for 18 years. Level 6 members' membership is redeemable for 26 years of life. Soon after, the most terrifying and mysterious organization in the world gradually appeared in Lu Li's writing. 8 times are superimposed. Lu Li rested in this state for a full hour. Although only an hour had passed outside, Lu Li had slept for a full 8 hours. The sunlight after the early morning rain penetrated through the window and fell on the bed. Lu Li opened his eyes. He only felt that his current state was more comfortable than ever before, and he was not at all tired from not having enough sleep after staying up all night. Many people often say that they don't have enough time, but for Lu Li, this will no longer be a problem. As soon as I changed my clothes, I heard movement outside the door. Lu Li opened the door and walked out. What he saw was his roommate Yang Zhen'er, who was 28 years old, 1 year older than Lu Li, and worked as a real estate agent in the Lian family. 8. When Lu Li walked out, Yang Zhen'er was changing her shoes at the door. She was wearing a professional OL suit and was slightly bent over. The hip-hugging skirt immediately outlined a graceful curve. Yang Zhen'er's legs were very slender, wrapped in thin black silk, and her raised foot was small and delicate, as if she could hold it in one hand. This is a woman who is truly ripe and ready for picking. Lu Li took one look and felt that his mouth was a little dry, and something was aroused in his heart, and there was a faint tendency to raise his head in some places. In the past, Lu Li didn't dare to think too much, because he knew that beautiful women were also rare and beyond the reach of ordinary people. But now, Lu Li's inner desires and ambitions were released. Lu Li, You're up? Am I disturbing you? Yang Zhener raised her head and looked at Lu Li, her eyebrows slightly curved, and she shouted with a smile. When Lu Li saw it, his heart suddenly jumped again. Yang Zhener's long and elegant black hair was draped over her shoulders, and her eyes seemed to be able to talk. Her face was covered with a light layer of makeup, just the right amount of eyeshadow, and her watery red lips opened and closed gently.
No, no.
Lu Li responded quickly. That's good. Oh, it's getting late. Lu Li, I'm leaving now, see you later. Yang Zhener glanced at her watch, hurriedly put on her remaining high-heeled shoes, waved her hand to Lu Li and walked out the door. Lu Li looked at the door that had reclosed. He licked his lips. His eyes seemed as if he wanted to swallow Yang Zhener alive. Since he started working, Lu Li and Yang Zhener have been living together in a shared apartment. He knows Yang Zhener's character very well.
Yang Zhener worships money.
Her biggest goal is to marry into a wealthy family. At least she must have a car and a house in the core city of Shanghai, and then have a savings of tens of millions. But the same thing. Yang Zhener is also a person with a bottom line or a smart person. She knows that her body and appearance are her greatest assets. Therefore, even if she works as a real estate agent, even if too many people hint to her, even if she has many suitors, Yang Zhener will always keep her integrity and wait for the price. Lu Li's expression returned to calm, but the corners of his mouth slightly raised. He took out his mobile phone and sat on the sofa in the living room. First, he called the team leader in the company. Brother Li, I have some things to deal with here, so I have to take a few days off, Lu Li said to the phone. Okay, 3 days is enough. Lu Li responded with a smile. In the company, he has a good relationship with the team leader. In addition, he has never asked for leave casually. Once he asked, he was quickly accepted. As for why you don't just quit your job, Lu Li thought to himself he's not too anxious about this. When he didn't have special powers, he wanted to escape from this environment all the time, but he had to grit his teeth and persevere. But with the power and the confidence to control his own destiny, Lu Li was no longer anxious. His mood before and after was completely opposite. Lu Li knocked his legs on the coffee table and leaned on the sofa, quietly enjoying the rare leisurely morning time at this moment. Previously, at this time, Lu Li should have already hurried out and bought a pancake at the entrance of the community. In 3 or 2 mouthfuls, he devoured the pancakes, then jogged to the subway. The subway in Shanghai's morning rush hour is very scary. You have to be quick and accurate, otherwise you won't be able to squeeze in at all. Even if you squeeze in, you will basically be stuck to the door and unable to move. This is the daily routine of the proletarian strugglers in Shanghai. This is the life Lu Li has been living. Comfortable. After a long time, Lu Li stretched out and let out a long breath. He stood up, returned to the room first, and then put some of the time acquisition contract and time selling contract into a folder. Lu Li held the folder between his arms and slowly walked out the door. After going out, Lu Li first went to the nearest agricultural bank. The bank has just opened, so there is no need to queue. Take 300,000. Lu Li sat in front of the bank counter, handed over his bank card, and then said calmly, "This is basically most of the money he has saved in the past 4 years. Enter password." After a while, the teller took out the RMB, passed it through the banknote detector twice, and handed the money to Lu Li. Lu Li put the money into a black bag and walked out of the bank. His goal today is to acquire a year's lifespan. After all, you can't just spend your original time, right? Lu Li bought an anonymous phone number on the roadside and put it on his mobile phone. He was walking on Zhangzhong Road in Huangpu District, and further ahead was the famous Jinling pedestrian street in Shanghai. The weather in the Magic City is very good today, and the sky is blue, just like Lu Li's mood today. In the 4 years since he started working, his steps have always been in a hurry. He is rarely as comfortable and leisurely as he is now. His eyes casually scanned the passers-by walking around. He looked at the strings of data above the heads of passers-by. Name Zhang Wentao. Age 35 years old. Remaining life 22 years, 35 days, 12 hours, 56 minutes, 16 seconds. Name Zhang Xiao. Age, 27 years old. Remaining life, 52 years, 32 days, 6 hours, 16 minutes and 27 seconds. Name, C. Bijuan. Age, 24 years old. Remaining life. This is a very wonderful feeling, as if you are the god of death or the god of God, able to control the fate of all living beings. Lu Li stopped and thought carefully, trying to use an adjective to describe his mood at this moment.
Glad, excited, superior, ambitious.
The countdown that represents life above everyone's heads is constantly returning to zero, cold and ruthless. Lu Li continued walking and walked into Jinling Road pedestrian street, hoping to find his target customers, although it is a completely voluntary transaction. But Lu Li still hopes that the remaining lifespan of his first-time acquirer can be as long as possible. At the entrance of Yongin department store, a young man, or rather a figure inside a Kumamon doll, caught Lu Li's attention. Lu Li looked at the message above his head. Name, Zhang Bowen. Age, 21 years old. Remaining lifespan, 65 years, 126 days, 13 hours, 49 minutes and 17 seconds. Lu Li felt that he had met his first customer. First of all, he is young. Counting his remaining lifespan, he can live to be 86 or 7 years old. Secondly, at the age of 21, if you are a student, you should be in college. As a college student working part-time, it means that your economic conditions are average, or at least you can expect to spend a lot of money in the short term. If you are not a student, then doing this kind of part-time job means that your academic qualifications must be low and your economic conditions are relatively poor. No matter which way you look at it, they all belong to Lu Li's target customer group. Lu Li stood aside and observed Kumamon's figure in a place that did not attract anyone's attention. Throughout the morning, the young man in the Kumamon doll hardly stopped handing out flyers and acting cute. Until 13:30 p.m., Kumamon finally stopped working. He took off his hood, revealing a fair young face. His hair and cheeks were wet with sweat. A middle-aged man who looked like a department store manager came out and paid the young man named Zhang Bowen a salary of 200 yuan. Zhang Bowen took the money, with a sunny smile on his face, and thanked him one after another. He took off the bear harness and left Yongin department store, planning to find a store to have a meal first, and then go to the next KFC store where he worked part-time. Zhang Bowen sat in a low-price noodle restaurant. As soon as he sat down, a young man sat down on the opposite side of the table. Zhang Bowen raised his head and took a look, with a smile on his face. This young man was none other than Lu Li. Hello. Lu Li looked at Zhang Bowen and said. At the same time, a thought arose in him. Please choose a doubled time. 100 times. 6. Messages appeared in Lu Li's heart one after another. The response he gave was to accelerate time 100 times, which was also his limit so far. If he wanted to add a higher multiple, Lu Li was not yet able to achieve it. In addition, this time, Lu Li not only accelerated his time, but also expanded the time field to include Zhang Bowen. A mysterious atmosphere spread quickly. With the different time ranges of formation, the area where Lu Li and Zhang Bowen were located was instantly equivalent to being isolated from this aspect of the world. Everything in the outside world, from the perspective of Lu Li and Zhang Bowen at this moment, whether it was sounds or movements, was slowed down 100 times. It's almost in a forbidden state. Zhang Bowen soon discovered what had happened. He widened his eyes and looked around. He found that the customers around him and the passers-by outside the store seemed to have pressed the prohibition button. He suddenly turned his head, widened his eyes, and looked at Lu Li with a slight smile. Hello. Lu Li spoke again slowly. How is this going? Did you do it? Who are you? Zhang Bowen's inner qualities were somewhat beyond Lu Li's expectations. Although it could be seen that he was frightened by the strange sight in front of him, and although his body tensed up, he remained as calm as possible. In fact, he quickly guessed that the cause of the supernatural event in front of him was probably due to the calm young man in front of him. Lu Li was quite satisfied with Zhang Bowen's reaction. He made such a big move and flexed his muscles first just to create the feeling at the moment. Otherwise, he felt that if a person suddenly came over and said he wanted to buy your time or lifespan, he would most likely be regarded as a psycho, a lunatic, or a fool. Please allow me to introduce myself. Lu Li paused slightly, showing a gentle smile, and then he said calmly, "You can call me Time Merchant." Time Merchant. Zhang Bowen heard this and muttered something. Considering the environment he was in at this time, he had some vague guesses in his mind, and then looked at Lu Li with a horrified expression. "For countless years, I have wandered around this world. I purchase their time and lifespan from people, and then resell the time and lifespan in my hands to other people who are capable and in need." Lu Li looked calm and spoke slowly. "So, Mr. Zhang, I wonder if you have any extra time that you would like to sell to me?" Lu Li paused and asked. Hearing Lu Li's words, Zhang Bowen quickly caught a key word. That is, the mysterious businessman in front of him called out his last name in one breath, but he clearly did not introduce himself. Zhang Bowen did not refuse directly because he really needed money now. At school, the goddess he was pursuing was about to celebrate her birthday. Zhang Bowen wanted to buy her a new iPhone, so he took a part-time job. However, Zhang Bowen was not a person who would lose his mind easily. He soon thought about his remaining time, with some hesitation on his face. Name: Zhang Bowen. Age: 21 years old. Remaining lifespan: 65 years, 126 days, 6 hours, 23 minutes and 31 seconds. Lu Li saw Zhang Bowen's hesitation and opened his mouth to report the string of data in his eyes. Zhang Bowen did not doubt Lu Li's words. When he heard about his lifespan, his face lit up and he immediately decided to sell it for a year or two. "I wonder what the price is?" Zhang Bowen asked carefully. "It needs to be based on the value you create in a year. The total tangible or intangible value you create in 1 year is less than 100,000 yuan. Then I will pay you 300,000 yuan as the amount for 1 year. If it exceeds 100,000 yuan, it will be exchanged for 3 times the income." Lu Lian responded concisely. "I'm a student, not yet." Zhang Bowen said that he wanted to try to increase his value as much as possible so that he could sell it for more money. "Then I'll buy you a single year for 300,000 yuan and refuse to bargain. This has been the case for thousands of years." Lu Li interrupted Zhang Bowen, not giving him a chance to continue speaking. He took out the folder he brought, opened the time acquisition contract, then filled in some information on the page and handed it to Zhang Bowen. "If you're willing to sell, sign your name here. Because this is my first transaction with you, according to the rules, I can only acquire you for 1 year at most." After Lu Li finished speaking, he closed his mouth and stopped talking. Zhang Bowen looked at the acquisition contract carefully. 300,000 yuan? Zhang Bowen thought in his mind. For ordinary people, this is obviously not a small number, because most people cannot earn this much in a year. So it should be worth exchanging 1 year of life for 300,000 yuan. Besides, if I have these 300,000, I can buy more gifts for Qingqing, and the bag I saw last time, Qingqing likes it very much. Anyway, working is equivalent to spending time to buy money. Zhang Bowen kept convincing himself in his heart. His expression changed, and after a moment, he gritted his teeth, grabbed the pen handed over by Lu Li, and then signed his name in the partia column. The smile on Lu Li's face became even stronger. Outside of Lu Li and Zhang Bowen, the flow of time was still slow, and everything seemed to be at a standstill. Lu Li took the folder, glanced at it, then held the pen and signed his name in Party B's column, Lu Li, with the finishing touch. The contract takes effect at the same time, under the witness of the laws of heaven and earth. Then, these are all yours. Lu Li took the 300,000 yuan in a black plastic bag beside him and threw it to Zhang Bowen. Zhang Bowen's breathing was a little short. He took the plastic bag and opened it. Stacks of red banknotes appeared in front of his eyes. Lu Li suddenly reached out his hand and made a gesture of grasping in front of Zhang Bowen's eyes. It was as if something had been caught by it. What could be seen was that Zhang Bowen suddenly shivered, and a strand of hair on his forehead instantly changed from black to white. Lu Li's own time suddenly increased by a whole year, which is 365 days. This is my contact information. If you want to cooperate with me next time, you can contact me. Lu Li told Zheng Bowen about the anonymous phone number he had just made. After doing all this, Lu Li stretched out his hand, and the flow of time between the two of them quickly returned to the same speed as the outside world. In a time flow that was 100 times faster, Lu Li and Zheng Bowen spent more than 30 minutes, but in the real world, only 18 seconds passed. I go first. Goodbye. Lu Li stood up and nodded slightly to Zheng Bowen, who was still in a trance. He walked out of the noodle shop calmly. Zheng Bowen looked at Lu Li's back and felt that the figure was too mysterious, as if it was walking in the long river of time, gradually fading away. That night, the Rong family's old house at number 166 Danshi Northwest Road, Jinan District, was brightly lit. The heirs and core members of the Rong family from all over the country have returned home one after another and rushed back to this house. One after another, low-key and luxurious motorcades parked at the gate of the manor. The main building in the manor is a Western-style building. Inside the building, there is a bedroom decorated in a classical style, and lying on a Baroque-style bed is Rong Eo, the only remaining second-generation ancestor of the Rong family. Rong Eo is too old, his body is thin, his skin is shriveled and bloodless, and he is already exhausted. He was wearing an oxygen mask, and there were various medical machines around him that were constantly testing any data on the old man's body. Beside Rong Eo's bedside, several contemporary leaders of the Rong family, as well as middle-aged and younger people, stood silently with sad expressions on their faces. Rong Eo is the younger brother of the Rong family's top helmsman of the Republic. He has experienced and participated in the eventful years before and after the founding of the Republic. As long as he lives for one more day, to the Rong family, he will be like a divine needle that fixes the sea. No matter you are young or old, you all know something in your heart. If Rong Eo goes, the Rong family will further choose to hide their capabilities and bide their time for a long period of time. Mr. Rong, a middle-aged man in a white coat, walked up to Rong Zhijian, the contemporary helmsman of the Rong family, and shouted in a low voice. Rong Zhijian looked away from the old man and looked at the doctor. He raised his hand and pressed it down, then made eye contact with his younger siblings. The members of the Rong family, followed by the four parents of Rong Zhijian and the doctor, lowered their steps and walked out of the bedroom. Mr. Rong, everyone, the old man may not survive tonight. The middle-aged doctor looked a little nervous as he was watched by many big shots. He swallowed and said in a deep voice. The words fell and the atmosphere became stagnant. At the same time, outside the old house of the Rong family, there is a road on the opposite side. Is this the Rong family's old house? The tall man wearing a gray trench coat looked at the Rong family house from a distance and whispered, "He is Lu Li, and the goal of this trip is Mr. Rong in the house." Did something happen? Lu Li glanced around the house. He could clearly sense that something was wrong with the atmosphere in Rongjai tonight. The level of vigilance was much higher, and cars parked at the door of the house from time to time. Lu Li shook his head and didn't think about it. A thought came to him and a message appeared in his mind. Please choose a double time. 100 times.
Lu Li responda.
As he exerted his abilities, the scene in his eyes quickly began to change. On the road, the car that was moving fast suddenly seemed to have stopped and moved forward extremely slowly. Under 100 times acceleration, Lu Li calculated at his normal pacing speed and step distance. 1 second in the outside world, that is, under 100 times acceleration, he would be able to walk 65 meters. You can walk 65 meters in 1 second. Calculated at 30 kilometers per hour, the car's driving speed was 8.3 meters per second. The car's driving speed was dozens of times slower than Lu Li's pace. 65 meters per second, converted into kilometers per hour, is equivalent to 234 kilometers per hour, which is comparable to the speed of a high-speed rail. This was just the speed at which Lu Li was pacing. If he were at the speed of a trot, then it would be even more terrifying. Lu Li put his hands in the pockets of his windbreaker and walked into the solemnly guarded Rong family old mansion with a relaxed expression. During this process, the patrolling guards did not notice his presence at all. Lu Li stood in a backlit place, raised his head slightly, and looked at the main building in front of him. He has some research on architecture, and it can be seen that the details of this Western-style building are very particular. The main facade of the building is a two-story colonnade. Judging from the top of the colonnades, the columns should cover the three column types of ancient Greece, namely Doric style, Ionian style, and Corinthian style. Lu Li recovered his thoughts and smiled. He took another step and entered the hall of the building. He shuttled through the buildings, and no one could notice him. Lu Li looked at the interior of this ancient building casually. The wooden fireplace is surrounded by carvings. The fireplace has neoclassical elements and celestial style details, intricately carved teak wainscoting. The 15 square meter skylight is topped by ancient stained glass. The floor is paved with multicolored hexagonal glazed tiles, which were created by Italian craftsmen using ancient craftsmanship to replace missing and damaged floor tiles. It is said that in order to make this kind of glazed brick, craftsmen first made a model according to the original century-old brick, re-prepared the porcelain clay for color matching, poured it by hand, backfilled it, and finally calcined it. This is a real mansion. Lu Li sighed with emotion. He walked towards the last bedroom. Passing the stairs, Lu Li saw one of the core tycoons of the Wei Rong family at the door of the bedroom. Lu Li's eyebrows were frivolous, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, revealing a smile. He slowed down the flow of his own time, making it 10 times faster. In the corridor, sudden footsteps suddenly sounded, which instantly attracted the attention of Rong Zhijian and others. The long corridor is illuminated by warm glazed lights. A pair of eyes searched for the position of the sound heading towards the stairs. A man wearing a gray trench coat put his hands in his pockets and walked out at a leisurely pace. Immediately afterwards, a scene that made everyone's scalp numb suddenly appeared. All I could see was that after the man in the trench coat took one step, he seemed to have traveled through space, or was shrinking into an inch, as the legend said. After one step, he was several meters away. In the 20 to 30 meter long corridor, the man in the windbreaker appeared in front of everyone in the Rong family in an instant. Can see more clearly. The man was very young, with a gentle appearance and a delicate face. He wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He had a smile on his lips and looked at Rong Zhijian and others gently. Outside the bedroom, the atmosphere in the corridor suddenly darkened. The security guards in black suits had also reacted and stood solemnly in front of the Rong family. They put their hands on their waists, as if they were about to take out something at any moment, and looked at Lu Li. The Rong family is now run by the Zhi generation. Rong Zhijian is the leader. He is in charge of the Zhongxin group. Rong Zhiquan is the current president of Brazil Universal Company. Rong Zhixin, the honorary head of Founder Digital Group. Rong Zhichuan, he is currently the general manager of the yarn mill of Shangjiang Nanyang Group and the head of the Shangjiang Textile Federation. The four leaders of the Rong family looked at Lu Li with twinkling eyes. The scene just now was really terrifying. "Who are you?" Rong Zhijian then said in a deep voice. Lu Li chuckled when he heard the question. He glanced behind everyone in the direction of the bedroom and saw the old man on the bed. Name, Rong Eo. Age, 98 years old. Remaining life, 13 minutes and 19 seconds. Lu Li withdrew his gaze and looked at the Rong family members who were looking at him as if they were facing an enemy. Lu Li smiled and waved his hand. A succession of feedbacks came to mind. Please choose a doubling time. 100 times. Lu Li enveloped himself and the four helmsmen of the Rong family with 100 times speed of time. In an instant, 100 times the time domain was quickly isolated. Rong Zhijian, Rong Zhiquan, Rong Zhixin, and Rong Zhichuan discovered the change immediately. The surrounding sounds suddenly disappeared. The security guards, servants, and other family members around him seemed to have been pressed on the pause button. It seems that there are only 4 of them left in this world, and the young man opposite can still move freely. The 4 high-ranking people at the helm of such a prestigious and ancient family, what kind of storms have they not seen? But at this moment, everyone opened their eyes wide, a little at a loss, and looked panicked. Rong Jichuan walked out in a few steps and came to the window. He looked out the window. He found that the world outside the building also fell into stillness. In the distance, the road that used to be full of traffic was extremely strange, and the cars stopped unexpectedly. Rong Jichuan stared for a while again. He found that it was not that the cars had stopped, but that all the cars were moving at an extremely slow speed. That speed is even much slower than his walking speed. Rong Zhijin, Rong Zhiquan, Rong Zhixin, and others came to Rong Jichuan's side, and they also discovered the changes in the outside world. Who are you? What's the intention? Rong Zhijin looked at Lu Li nervously and fearfully, and asked, what kind of supernatural power is this? Whether it's stopping time or slowing down time, this kind of power is far beyond what their family can resist. Just imagine, if the young man in front of them is hostile to them, with such ability no one can resist. Oops, I seem to have scared you a little. Lu Li looked at the 4 people in front of him. They were all high-ranking figures in the entire Magic City. It is no exaggeration to say that these 4 people stamped their feet and shook the business world of the Magic City. But at this moment, this big shot to ordinary people was looking at him in fear. Lu Li felt a little happy. He chuckled and said, after a pause, Lu Li stood up straight and slowly straightened out his wrinkle-free clothes. Then he looked at the 4 people in front of him again. With a serious look on his face, he introduced himself. Allow me to introduce myself first. My surname is Lu. You can call me Mr. Lu. I am a businessman traveling around the world. I have one and only one product, and that is... Lu Li's voice rang out unhurriedly. He paused and looked at the 4 big guys in front of him. The smile in his eyes grew stronger, and then he uttered 2 words. Time! Lu Li's last words were like thunder exploding in the ears of the 4 Rong family members. They looked at each other with shock on their faces. What kind of businessman can trade time as a commodity? Is that your elder? He only has 13 minutes left to live. Lu Li looked at the old man on the bed in the bedroom and said suddenly. Hearing Lu Li's words, the 4 members of the Rong family gradually calmed down. They realized the meaning of Lu Li's words, and their expressions showed joy. Rong Zhijin made eye contact with several brothers. Then he looked at Lu Li respectfully and asked, the value that everyone can create in the same time is different. So, I often use money as the medium of measurement and charge 1/5 of the value created by the exchanger in a single year as the price of a single year. Lu Li looked at Rong Zhijin and did not answer his question directly, but spoke slowly and leisurely. He paused and then added, for every transaction, I only accept transactions within 1 year. Rong Zhijin, Rong Zhiquan, and others listened carefully. Calculated based on each of their annual income and value. Each year starts with 100 million. This number can be said to be the most expensive commodity in the world. However, for the elusive time, it seems that no matter how expensive it is acceptable. There is a saying from our ancestors that 1,000 pieces of gold cannot buy an inch of time. In Lu Li's hands, this sentence obviously went wrong. Mr. Lu, we want to buy 1 year of life for our uncle. Rong Zhijin bowed slightly to Lu Li and said respectfully, good.
Lu Li nudda.
Everyone determined the price and said something as time accelerated 100 times. After a moment, Lu Li waved his hand and canceled the 100-fold time acceleration. The time domain that enveloped the 5 people instantly returned to the outside world. In the corridor, each member of the Rong family, as well as many security guards in black suits, as well as servants and medical staff, looked at the 4 Rong Zhijin who had walked to the window in surprise. Everyone here, please keep their mouths shut after what happened today. If anyone leaks it, he will be a traitor to our Rong family and an enemy of our Rong family. Rong Zhichuan looked majestic. His eyes swept over everyone, and he said in a deep voice. The warning in his words and expression was undisguised. Rong Zhijin and the other 3 looked at the crowd equally seriously. Everyone was silent, but soon everyone reacted. Mr. Rong, don't worry. We didn't see anything tonight. Mr. Rong, Please rest assured, Mr. Rong, everyone promised. Oldly, take everyone out of the scene and retreat from this floor. Rong Zhijin looked at the butler beside him and said solemnly, It's everyone, including all the doctors. Rong Zhijin emphasized. The members of the Rong family all looked puzzled when they heard this, but looking at the expressions on their parents' faces, they didn't dare to ask any more questions, keeping their questions deep in their hearts. Yes, sir. The old butler was solemn, bowed slightly, and said in a deep voice. After a while, everyone on this floor except for Rong Zhijin, Rong Eo, who was on the hospital bed, and Lu Li all left. Lu Li glanced at the hospital bed and suddenly ordered Rong Zhijin, By the way, send someone to get a box of red ink pad. 6. Rong Zhijin heard this and quickly agreed. He trotted to the stairs and asked the housekeeper to get the ink pad as soon as possible. A few minutes later, Lu Li walked into the bedroom where Rong Zhio was, and Rong Zhijin and the other two followed behind him. Lu Li walked to the bed and gently sat down next to Rong Eo. He took out the folder he brought and put the time-selling contract on the first page. He took out his pen and wrote the necessary information on the contract. You guys can sign on behalf of the old man. After a while, the old man will take a fingerprint. Lu Li looked at Rong Zhijin and said, I understand, Mr. Lu. Rong Zhijin responded respectfully. He took the folder and glanced at the contract. Although the contract was simple, he did not dare to despise it at all. After reading the contract, I kept all the requirements in the contract in mind. Rong Zhijin took out the pen, opened the cap, and signed his name on behalf of Rong Eo in the party column. His younger brother quickly walked to the side of Rong Eo, holding the red ink pad. Holding Rong Eo's withered hand, he pressed it towards the ink pad. Then he pressed his finger on the time-selling contract. Lu Li looked at this scene with satisfaction. He finally took the time-selling contract, glanced at it, and signed his name in the Party B column. At this time, the message above Rong Eo's head is as follows. Name, Rong Eo. Age, 96 years old. Remaining life, 12 seconds. The old man's life has truly begun to count down. 11 seconds. 10 seconds. 9 seconds. 6 seconds. As for the payment, please transfer it to my bank card within 3 working days. Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. Lu Li glanced at the time, looked at the 4 Rong family members calmly, and gave a warning. Mr. Lu, don't worry. Yes, we never dare to default on the payment we owe you. We will transfer the money for you in a moment. Rong Zhijin, Rong Zhichuan, Rong Zhixin and others were a little nervous and quickly assured.
Lu Linudda.
Only then did he look at Rong Eo. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. It can be seen that the electrocardiogram data next to Rong Eo begins to approach a straight line. Lu Li suddenly reached out his hand and threw something at Rong Eo on the bed. Just after making such a move, something unexpected happened right after. On the bed, old man Rong Eo's heart beat heavily several times, and immediately after, vital blood flowed out, rapidly flowing through the major blood vessels in his body. Arms, skin, cheeks start to turn rosy. The electrocardiogram returned from stable to normal. Rong Eo's arms suddenly moved, and his eyes slowly opened. Name, Rong Eo. Age, 96 years old. Remaining lifespan, 365 days. Gentlemen, since the deal has been reached, Lu will say goodbye. Lu Li looked at the 4 current leaders of the Rong family with a smile, and then said. After saying this, he didn't wait for the reaction of the 4 people, and an idea came to his mind. Information prompts appear in the mind. Please choose a doubling time. 100 times. Lu Li raised his feet and walked towards the door of the bedroom. Just as his footsteps fell, 100 times the time field quickly isolated him from the flow of time in the outside world. Lu Li seemed to be walking in the current space, but he also seemed to be wandering in another time and space. This strong sense of contradiction and dislocation makes everyone who sees it feel numb. In the sight of Rong Zhijin, Rong Zhixin, Rong Jichuan and Rong Jiquan, Lu Li only raised his feet after bidding them farewell. Before his steps could completely fall, his entire figure had disappeared into the original place. Land. When he reappeared, he was already 10 meters away. Lu Li disappeared into the bedroom, and the four of them looked in the direction of the empty door in shock, saying nothing for a long time. After a long time, they looked at each other. Rong Zhixin, the honorary leader of Founder Digital Group, shuddered. He reached out and touched his arm in the armhole, and found that at some point, goosebumps had appeared on his arms. Beside him, his brothers were the same. I never thought that there would be such an incredible existence in this world. Rong Zhijian, the contemporary head of the Rong family, took a long breath and said with lingering fear, "Unlike those warriors who practice Chinese martial arts, this is a true supernatural power." Rong Jichuan, general manager of Shangjiang Nanyang Group's yarn mill and head of the Shangjiang Textile Federation, said, "Based on their status, they have even seen the Xingyiquan master hidden in the palace, who only kills people but does not perform. But no matter how powerful those people were individually, they were still mortal bodies and could be knocked down with just one shot. The difference between the abilities displayed by Lu Li and those of Lu Li was like a mortal and an immortal. Only close friendships, not enemies." Rong Jiquan said, "Mr. Lu's existence is not a good thing for us." Everyone, Chief Rong Zhijian thought about it and said, "Throughout history, whether they are powerful people with overwhelming power or rich people with countless wealth, they all long for immortality. The appearance of Lu Li is tantamount to opening the road to immortality for the Rong family." Just when Rong Zhijian and others were about to say something, next to their ears, a hoarse voice rang, "Zhixin, Zhixin, Zhixin." Hearing this call, the four bodies of Rong Zhijian were shocked. Without thinking about it, their faces showed joy and they looked at the old man on the bed. The old man, who had just breathed his last breath, now turned rosy. He opened his eyes and looked at the four people beside the bed. "Second uncle. Second uncle, how do you feel?" "Dad. Second uncle." The four of them, Rong Zhijian, were breathing rapidly and shouted one after another, "Doctor! Doctor! Doctor!" Rong Eo's son Rong Zhixin's face turned red. His actions were completely unlike that of an old man who was nearly 70 years old. He rushed out of the corridor and shouted. Everyone in the Rong family, as well as doctors and security guards, were always guarding the stairs. When Rong Zhixin's roar echoed in the corridor, everyone at the stairway suddenly felt anxious. They looked at each other and thought to themselves, "I'm afraid the old man is gone." Several doctors in white coats rushed to the stairs and rushed to the bedroom. Everyone in the Rong family looked sad and followed closely. The security personnel are on alert as if facing a formidable enemy. Everyone rushed into the bedroom and saw the old man sitting leaning on the back of the bed. One by one, the doctors were surprised, thinking it was a return of light, and they quickly walked to the medical equipment that was constantly monitoring the old man. Data items one after another appeared in their eyes. Yan Fucking, Dean of Fudan University's Shanghai Medical College, looked at the latest information about Rong Eo's physiological data. His eyes widened and his mouth opened. How can it be? Yan Fucking felt as if he was in a dream. Spring comes out of dead trees? Change your fate against the will of heaven? Chimen Duinjia, the secret technique of borrowing life? Countless words kept appearing in Yan Fucking's mind. At the previous moment, he knew clearly that the old man Rong Eo had truly run out of fuel. But now, life was once again born in his body. How about it? Rong Zhijian and others looked at Yan Fucking. It may be that our previous data detection was wrong. Judging from the new information, Rong Lao's physical condition has almost returned to the level of a year ago. Yan Fucking did not dare to question, and after careful consideration, he attributed Rong Lao's last moments to the machine's error. Of course, he knew it couldn't be a machine error, but he had to say it this way. This was Yan Fucking's political wisdom. Good. Thank you. Rong Zhijian heard this and nodded with satisfaction. He reached out and patted Yan Fucking's shoulder, responded one after another, and then walked back to the bed. Yan fucking looked at Rong Zhijin's back and opened his mouth. After all, he did not ask the questions in his heart. He was well aware of the power of a wealthy family like the Rong family, and he knew what he should and should not ask. That person. Yan fucking recalled the mysterious young man he saw tonight. In fact, not only him but everyone present, although they didn't ask, they all remembered the young man deeply in their minds. Outside the Rong family's residence, Danshi Northwest Road is busy with traffic. Lu Li had already withdrawn from Time Doubler. He put his hands in his pockets and faced the evening breeze, his windbreaker blowing open. He pushed the frame on the bridge of his nose with a slight smile on his face.